Hey guys, welcome back to our podcast. Today, Rickie will be discussing the idea of visualization.
Hey guys. Um, the topic of visualization is something that's actually very, very near and dear to me. And I only really have discovered it in my life over the past few years. And since quarantine has started, I think a lot of us were put in a situation where we couldn't go to the studio, and we are trying to find alternative ways to still somehow improve our dancing. Or maybe even if we weren't going to the studio, there were other ways that we were taking up our time that usually we would be practicing, preparing, all of that stuff. Um, in that time that I wasn't at the studio, I was definitely able to open my eyes to more ideas about visualization and the power that it can truly hold within somebody's life and what they choose to do with their life. And kind of how Dan mentioned in the last video, sometimes people don't talk about it very much because it can be a little bit hard to explain. I think that, to be honest, it's not very hard to explain, but the idea to our nation and our world can still be seen very much as taboo. Because, I mean, let's be honest, when you hear somebody come up to you and just say, if you visualize what you want, you will achieve it. And that's simply just not how we were taught ever in our lives, especially when it comes to dance. From a very young age, you're taught to hold your arms, to straighten your legs, and to dance to the beat. And that if you put in enough hard work and practice, you will achieve what you want. Which is definitely a huge part of it. But I think, especially in the dancing world in general, we put too much um, we put too much attention on the outwardness of our dancing, of the technique, how we look, the routines, choreography, all of that stuff, which is just equally as important. But I think there's a whole nother side of dancing mentally and emotionally that, of course, you probably won't be able to understand it when you're just preteen, but I think it's more important to start at least maybe from the junior 1, junior 2 age, that we start talking about it, because I believe it truly can impact you, not only in your dancing life, but also in your everyday life, and can really help to improve where you are in your life. Who doesn't want to improve their life in some way? I'm pretty sure every single person listening to this, every single person walking the planet probably has some idea of how they want to improve their life. And I think this is one of the ways that we can do that. My experience with visualization started back in, I want to say, 2017, early 2018, when I was living in New York. And I used to live very, very close to the dance studio I was at. So I would just be walking to the studio every day. And when I was done, I would walk home, and it'd be like a 10 or 15-minute walk. And then later, I started going to a studio that was about an hour away. And when I was going to the studio that was an hour away, I was on the train for 45 minutes and then a 15-minute walk after the train. And when I was sitting on that train in the early mornings on my way to practice, um, I decided, instead of just waiting to get to practice to turn on my brain into dance mode, that I would kind of prepare my brain before I got to the studio. Because obviously, when you're going somewhere an hour away, and you're paying your subway fee to get there, and then you're going to pay a floor fee to practice there, you're going to pay for the group class, and you're going to pay for the rounds, and then you got to get on on the train and go an hour home and pay for that fee again just get back to your home. You want to make the time at the studio as productive as possible. So instead of waiting to get there to emotionally and mentally get into the mode, I decided, let's try getting into the mode before you get to the studio. This was more how I would improve and visualize my Latin dancing at the time, because usually when I was going farther away, I was going to a Latin studio. So I was always in the Latin mode. What am I working on that day? And one of the things that I love to do was doing a full out round in my head on the subway on the way to Manhattan. Um, I would just close my eyes, put in my headphones, and of course, I would do like some sort of preparation. I wouldn't just go into the round right away. Like mentally, I'd have to prepare myself. I would think about what are some things that I worked on in my last lesson or my last practice or my last solo practice? What are some things that I felt that I can improve upon or that I wasn't comfortable with? And I would think about those first and I would say, okay, put on the cha-cha music. I would start exactly how I'd start in a competition. So I wouldn't wait and wait and wait. The music starts, I start my routine. Um, and I would go through that cha-cha until I was about 1 minute and a half, 1 minute 45. Then I would turn down the music, wait 10 seconds, samba, rumba, paso doble, and jive. And I would go through it exactly how I would want to dance my routine in the competition, exactly how I would want to dance my routine when I get to the studio, because I know I'm going to be dancing rounds that morning. And I don't just want to see what happens, I want to know what's going to happen. This was something that helped me a lot. I would also do it the morning of competitions or a few hours before I would dance. So if I was dancing in the evening, once I was done with my hair and makeup, I would sit quietly and I would visualize how I would like to dance that evening. Besides that, besides just doing mental rounds, that's how I would always call them. I'm doing a mental round. If my partner would like try to talk to me, or like if we were on the subway together, I'd like, okay, I'm doing a mental round. And then I'd go into like my space and do what I need to do. Besides doing that, I would also do a very similar thing just with practice. So I would just go over ideas, and maybe if I had a lesson that week, I would visualize what I practiced in the lesson and how I can basically just practicing in my mind, doing it over and over again, going over the concept, going over how it feels physically, how I want it to feel. And then I would look at it also from a third person point of view. So I would visualize myself dancing with my partner in the studio, watching myself, how I would want the judges to see me, if that makes sense. So I would visualize exactly how I want to look, and then I would do it also first person visualization, how I feel in the couple, where my head is, all my body actions, my movements, and I would do this with standard and with Latin. And I felt like it definitely helped by the time I got to the studio and I was practicing. I already knew what I wanted it to feel like, and I already visualized myself doing it the way that I want. Of course, this is not a foolproof method, You can't just go to the studio, visualize your dancing, and expect it to happen. You still have to put in that work. You still have to put in knowing all the technique, writing down what you learned, thinking about it every time you go on the floor, being in a good mental space, and trying to be as productive as possible. But once you have accomplished those things, the visualization is just a huge step on top of that that can help bring all those ideas and all that hard work to life and actually make a pretty big difference in your dancing. That's been my experience with it. I do think that it truly has helped. And I just want to touch a little bit on the fact about maybe why we don't talk about it as much as I feel that we should. Um, like I said before, I think the idea of visualization, I think visualization is a nice way to put it. I think the more taboo idea, which basically where it comes from in my mind, is the word manifestation. I think when people hear about manifestations, they just think that it's crazy and that
Supernatural, in my opinion.
and it's like supernatural and just like waiting for a miracle to happen. Um, that's how I saw it from the outside. Like, oh, manifestations are just like miracles when they happen in your life, something that you completely don't expect and it just happens. And I think that it's kind of naive to think that way. And we just put a label on it before we actually try it, before we actually try to dig deeper into the subject and understand it more. You don't have to call it manifestation. You can call it absolutely whatever you want. In this case, we are using the particular example of visualization, which stems from manifestation. It's just one part of it. I think this really helps in your dancing. And I think one of the huge differences that separates many, many dancers from the Arunas and Katushas, the Ricardos and Yulias, the Trolls and Inas, all of those people that we look up to, that we see, and we watch them for years and years and years, and we want to be like them. I think there's only a certain point where you can differentiate couples just based on their technique, just based on their performance. If you ask somebody, who's your favorite finalist in the Blackpool Pro Latin final on that last 2 days of the Blackpool Dance Festival, people are going to have their own opinions. And it doesn't mean that one couple is going to be everybody's favorite, because once you get to that level and the dancing is so similar and it's such on a high quality, it comes down to something other than dance, in my opinion. Aside from the physical aspect, I think the people that do make it to the top and the people that are world-renowned names in our industry are mentally and emotionally much more advanced than their peers. And I think we don't talk about that enough because we just want to believe if we practice 7 hours a day and we have perfect technique, we'll be exactly like them. But I think a huge stepping stone that we're missing is that I believe that they're very emotionally advanced and have qualities in their mentality that put them above, that gives them that first place in Blackpool, that makes you go from the semifinal to the final of a major, that makes you grow substantially even in a short amount of time. It's definitely, I wouldn't call it like a cheat sheet or anything, or like some magical loophole in our world that's just like, oh, if you do this, you're going to be successful. But I definitely think it's something that most of us don't, how do you say,
You can say
most of
that
us
it's a tool that you can use.
tool, yes. Most of us don't utilize that tool simply because either we don't know about it, we don't talk about it, we haven't learned about it or educated ourselves about the topic and actually tried it for ourselves. And it's not something that happens overnight. It's definitely something that takes time. It is a huge process, but I truly believe it is worth taking the time, discovering yourself, how it can help you, your partnership, even your life outside of dance. And I think that's a huge key that the top very, very small percent of dancers in our industry have, that most people may not see when they first look at that couple. And I would have to say that it's my experience and my thoughts on visualization. And I hope that you guys enjoyed.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Make sure to tell us what you think on this topic. If you're gonna try it out, if you do try it out, tell us what's your experiences. And guys, don't try it out once and then quit. Try it out multiple times. Put some time and effort into it, and then after some time, have have your findings. Um,
See how it makes a
yeah,
difference.
see how it makes a difference. One time is not gonna make a huge difference. Thank you for listening, everyone. We'll see you
Bye,
next time.
guys.